The candidates for U.S. Senate here in Ohio went head-to-head last night in a live debate that you saw only here on 21 WFMJ. Congressman Tim Ryan and J.D. Vance are locked in a tight race in all of the polls that are out right now. But how did they fare on the issues during their heated exchanges as well? Here to weigh in, as always, we reached those final weeks of the midterm campaigns is former Ohio State Senator Capri Cafaro. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
We started off the night with the topic of inflation, the top issue among the voters in all of the polls. How did each candidate fare on these top issues that voters are concerned about right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I thought that was a great way to start the debate because it is one of the top issues, the economy being a top issue for Ohio voters and voters nationwide in this midterm election. And so the economy is really on the ballot. I thought that both J.D. Vance and Tim Ryan, I would have hoped for a little bit more specifics, but I do think, particularly with your specific question, Lindsay, about the Inflation Reduction Act, I think that Tim did try to provide some more specifics about the amendments that he presented, in that bill and how they could potentially help. But he also used that opportunity to pivot and mention his tax cut plan, which I thought was also interesting to take advantage of that. Of course, we saw J.D. Vance, swing back, and I think it was a theme throughout the evening of, trying to utilize the questions that you, the moderators, asked to, of course, bring it back to the things that each candidate wanted to talk about, particularly as it pertained to highlighting, contrasting themselves with the other candidates. So we saw a lot of shots being fired, certainly last night, in the midst of the questions where all of you were trying to get more specifics.
Yeah, I mean, there's a debate right now over the federal spending and how much federal spending we have approved so far. So I think that was something I was listening closely to see what is the strategy, because the economy is what it is. So what are we going to do about it? This is a close race right now. Tim Ryan appeared to use, like you mentioned, every opportunity really to find a place where he believed Vance, though, was extreme on issues. Vance then worked to tie Ryan to the Biden agenda, asking him why he did not vote against the Dems in the past on most issues. Were those strategic moves effective, in your opinion, throughout the night?
I think it was really varied. I do think that in the case of, I think it was Bertram's question about an opportunity where, contrasting each candidate with their party. How can you possibly stand up to your party? Give me a specific example where you disagree with Donald Trump or you disagree with Joe Biden. And I think that both candidates could have done better contrasting themselves with real tangible examples. I mean, I guess I think it was J.D. Vance was saying that he disagreed with some of the, like John Bolton's appointment, for example, which I found kind of obscure, relevant, but obscure. I think that Tim Ryan could have been a bit more specific. He utilized the opportunity again to talk about how he ran against Nancy Pelosi, which is valid, but is different than not agreeing with the policy and voting against his party. So it's one thing to, yes, raise the question of leadership, a leadership change, a generational shift, a different approach in being and leading the Democrats in the chamber of the House. But that to me is not the same as a contrast in policy views.
Your top moment of the night, and what do you think this debate did for each candidate? Did it help them or hurt them?
Certainly. I mean, I think that the conversation around replacement theory, I think, was very much the viral moment of the night. It was a very sensitive topic, one that we haven't really seen discussion about, one where I think J.D. Vance, I think, did, humanize himself a bit by bringing his family into the mix, by, raising the point that he does have biracial children. And then bringing it back to immigration again, saying, trying to say that just because you're, tough on the border doesn't necessarily mean that you are supporting things like replacement theory. Again, as you mentioned, Lindsay, Tim Ryan used every opportunity to try to paint J.D. Vance as extreme. This was another one of those moments where, he tried to paint himself as tried to paint J.D. Vance as extreme, whether it was on immigration or basically the company he keeps, which I found very interesting. This was one of the things that Tim Ryan continued to bring back and did in the last debate, basically saying, JD Vance, if you align yourself with Marjorie Taylor Greene or Donald Trump or others, January 6th, which was another big moment, I think, as well, the January 6th discussion.
All right. Well, a lot.
He's
We
trying to
rounded
say
all
the
of it
company
up,
you keep
Capri.
is extreme.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining me. It's just so much to get to. I'm sure we
It's my
would keep
pleasure.
going and going if we could, but we have 3 more weeks to do it,
I
and I'm sure I'll
know.
find you before then. So really appreciate having you here on the 5 p.m.
Absolutely.
News.
My pleasure.